All right, everyone. We are here. I'm Pastor Tommy McMurtry with Peter, and you're gonna have to say your last name for me. I don't know how you say your last name. How do you
Yeah,
say it?
it's Kratofilow. Excuse the voice too. It'll probably go in and out. I'm under the weather, but it's
Okay,
whatever.
understand. All right, so Peter Kratofilow, and we had some back and forth on Twitter and I was called anti-Semitic, and so he got called out by someone else who did not see the evidence of that. I claim I am not anti-Semitic. He stands by his words that I am, and so I understand as somebody who has an unpopular position there are many lies out there about me. I got a lot of enemies. And so I could see where someone might think that about me had they been listening to bad sources. But I don't think anyone who would actually talk to me or listen to me for any length of time would have that opinion of me. And we've never talked to each other other than back and forth on Twitter. And so I guess right now, what is it about me that would cause you to make a very extreme accusation that I am anti-Semitic?
Well, let me read the definition.
Okay.
Anti-Semitism, also spelled anti-Semitic, anti-Semitism, however you want to, is hostility to, prejudice toward, or discrimination against Jews. That is from Merriam-Webster. I know sometimes they change definitions. I don't think that one's been changed in a while, but that is the definition of anti-Semitism. Now, look, I know coming on here, you're not going to claim to be anti-Semitic. I'm not crazy, because that one would be bad on the brand. Two, most people that are never actually will admit they themselves are. So that's okay. I know what I'm walking into. But I have a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to answer them, go right ahead.
Yep.
First thing here, this is probably the most simple one. Do you believe in the Holocaust?
Yes.
All right. Follow up. If so, how many died and to what extent?
I mean, I've not looked into it deeply, but my understanding is 6 million. And I think Hitler was a bad dude. Yeah, I've not, I know there's people out there that disagree with it. I've not looked into it, nor am I really interested in disproving it. To me, whether it happened or didn't happen, it has no bearing on what the Bible teaches. So I refuse to even get in that debate. I just accept it. When people want to bring that up with me, I'll even up the number if they want, because to me that's a non-issue. It has nothing to do with the Bible.
All right. And now, who did it mostly affect?
The Holocaust?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, the attack on the Jews mainly affected the Jews. World War II affected a lot of people. I mean, millions of people died that weren't Jewish in World War II. That was a horrible time in history. I'm glad I wasn't a part of it. But, I mean, yeah, Jewish people, a lot of Jewish people died. I don't think that was the way to handle things.
Okay. Now, the reason why I asked that is I know you and Steven Anderson have been linked together. You've been to conferences together with him in the whole 9 yards. First time I've ever come in contact with the new IFB movement was in Bible college. I dated a girl whose father was deep into Steven Anderson. And that was one of the videos he had out there was on the Holocaust and on those things. That was the first reason for that question. Just get that out of the way. That's normally a softball one.
Yeah, I mean, right. When it comes to his position on the Holocaust, I don't base fellowship on somebody's position on historical events. In fact, the first time I ever publicly did anything, with Steven Anderson, I brought up that thing too, and he thinks it's ridiculous to use something like that as a test of fellowship, and if that would have been required for me to ever have any fellowship with him, then I'd been like, well, this is stupid because I'm not, I'm not fighting for that cause. That is not one I'm interested in at all. If he wants to have that, great. When it comes to the Holocaust, one of the reasons too, I'm not going to fight people on it too, is because I do think it's suspicious that it's illegal to deny the Holocaust in a lot of countries. I think it's super weird that it's literally illegal to question a historical event in many parts of the world. So I get why people have questions and concerns, but I have not looked into it. And I personally think it just distracts from the real issue that I want to talk about. And that's what the Bible says on this subject. So I refuse to even go there. I will just concede the historians are right on this. It happened. I really haven't looked into it to where I have any reason to deny it.
Okay. Now, again, normally if people deny the Holocaust, if they normally go down that same route as Steven Anderson, it normally ends up in anti-Semitism. And it normally just is, I'll just call it what it is. It's plain out anti-Semitism.
But why is it anti-Semitic to deny the Holocaust? That's what I don't understand. I don't understand why that means you hate the Jews or you're hostile towards the Jews. I mean, there's a lot of historical events that people question. There's a lot of people that believe the moon landing was fake. There's a lot of the theories about the false flags, and I think there's a lot of credibility to a lot of the things that people question in history. I mean, look at just the last few years, some of the stuff that's going on and how you're not allowed to question anything. People have every reason in the world to be suspicious about what the narrative is on historical things, and especially when those things are used as weapons to control us. And it's like no one's ever allowed to say anything negative about the Jews in any way because of the Holocaust, and that's always the thing that's brought up. And so I think that's ridiculous, and I don't think it's fair to drop some of those labels because of that position. I think people have every right to question a lot of stuff that's being promoted and a lot of history, so it's but that is what it is. I'm not fighting that battle.
I grew up Jewish. My mother's Jewish. Relatives over there, whole 9 yards. To deny that, to say that didn't happen, to deny now there were other groups that were involved in the Holocaust, but to deny it wasn't primarily targeted at the Jews, again, is just a hallmark of anti-Semitism. It's normally them trying to justify Hitler's teaching. And if you know anything about Hitler's teaching, he was a race-based guy, starting with the Jews and then working his way down. Right. Second question I have here. Who controls the media, banking, and political world?
The Jews.
Why do you say that?
Because it's a fact.
All right, so I have this quote from you.
Okay.
This is from May 2020.
Mm-hmm.
It says, the Jews have been doing this forever, and most of these people, the news media, they're Jews. They're owned by Jewish companies and folks. this is what they do. They stir up the multitudes. They get people going crazy. Why? Because they want to destroy. They want to bring chaos. They want to, so they can have power. Explain to me how that's not anti-Semitic. I mean,
okay, if it's
you're sitting there blaming a whole host of people using tropes, assuming that they control the thing. I mean, that's no better than Marjorie Taylor Greene saying the Jews own the space lasers.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you deny that Jews own most of these media companies?
Yes, I do.
You do deny that?
Or even if they are Jewish in ethnicity, that does not mean they are some grand Jewish conspiracy. Most of them don't even practice Judaism.
Well, I didn't say that they practice Judaism, because there's a lot of secular Jews. I've put the distinction out there between secular Jews, and your Orthodox Jews. There's no doubt about that. But it's just a fact that Jews do own these media companies. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of research to figure that out. In fact, if you go to, I went to the Jewish Museum in Philadelphia. If you go to anything like that, when they talk, I thought I was going to go there and see stuff maybe about like the Old Testament, the origins. It's all about the people. They brag about the fact that they, own all these things. A lot. In fact, there's a lot of Christian Zionists that have even praised them for that, and it's they've used it as proof that God's blessing is on them, because look at how successful they are and all these things. So you're the first person I've heard to even deny that. Now, that quote that I was bringing up, I was probably preaching from Acts chapter 17, where you have the Apostle Paul, when he is preaching, it says, but the Jews, in verse 5, which believe not, moved with envy, took unto them certain lewd fellows of the baser sort, and gathered a company, and set all the city on an uproar, and assaulted the house of Jason, and sought to bring them out to the people. And that's what the Bible says. The Jews did this. You keep reading Acts 17. They get done in that city. They run the Christians off to another city. The Jews do the same thing. They follow them. And the Jews throughout the Bible, they would never do a lot of the dirty work. They would rile up the mobs. And that is exactly what's going on in the news media today. They're always getting the mobs riled up. They get the Black Lives Matter crowd riled up. They get the homosexuals riled up. And listen, you think that's anti-Semitic. What do you say to the Apostle? Okay. What do you say to the Apostle Paul, who said in 1 Thessalonians 2:14, which is a reference to what took place in Acts 17, because it was in Thessalonica where this happened, says, for ye, brethren, became followers of the churches of God, which in Judea are in Christ Jesus. For ye also have suffered like things of your own countrymen, even as they have of the Jews, who both killed the Lord Jesus and their own prophets, and they have persecuted us, and they please not God, and are contrary to all men. He's talking about the Jews, forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved, to fill up their sins always, for the wrath is come upon them to the uttermost. And that is what I was preaching. And so just like the Jews did in Acts chapter 17, and the Apostle Paul said they please not the Lord, they're contrary to all men, they do the same thing today, and that's undeniable. And I don't know. If I'm anti-Semitic, so is Paul.
So you see it as a race issue. I don't
see it as a race issue.
I see it as an American accomplishment that Jews came over here, just like much of anyone else, and that they made a success out of themselves. Jews, no matter where they have gone, have been an ethnically persecuted minority, whether you're talking about Venice in the Middle Ages, Spain in the 1400s, Germany, no matter where they go, they end up being the merchant class. Sometimes that was due by force, due to middle-aged Christianity, not believing, giving interest and all that fun stuff. And so they would go to the Jews for their loans. That's how things worked. That does not mean there's some grand conspiracy where the Jews control everything, or that they're in control of the White House, or they're in control of the media, they're in control of this. That's a common Jewish trope. It's no different than Ilhan Omar getting up there and saying, there's no difference about the Jews and all about the Benjamins. It's just a trope. That's what it is. It's obvious Jew hatred. I mean, that's what it is.
Okay, now, so why did the Apostle Paul say they are contrary to all men?
I'll look at the context of that, but again, if he's speaking of that specific specific occasion there and in the book of Acts, that was a one specific interest. If you talk about Paul, he loved Israel. He wanted all Israel to be saved. Romans
yeah. I mean,
so
I love Jews.
And say that the Jews can still be saved. The Jews are still loved by God. I still believe they have a special purpose. God's not gotten rid of them, obviously. So there you go.
Okay, but I don't deny that they can be saved. I don't deny that that God will still save them or loves them, and I can still love Jews and still be against what they stand for. And I am against the religion.
Conspiracy theories, when you promote these things.
Oh, wait.
That end to Jew hatred, this is the kind of things that get people riled up. That's why you end up on far right sites, or not even some crazy sites, such as if you type in Tommy McMurdy, anti-Semitism, you end up on Breitbart.com. It's insane stuff, because they're pulling these things and cheering you on. That's not by accident.
I'm on Breitbart.com.
Not Breitbart, Groiper, I don't know how to pronounce it.
I don't even know. Well,
Groiper or YPER, something like that.
Yeah, well, I'm not familiar with that, but at the same time, listen.
Well, that's because they're cheering you on, saying, "Yes, this is our guy."
Well, I can't help that if somebody's agreeing with me, that is not liked by people. But I mean, you can't deny what the scripture. I'm just saying the same thing as Paul. They're contrary to all men. Yes, they've had problems everywhere they go, but they've also, it's because a lot of their banking practices, their predatory lending practices that they've practiced in a lot of countries, they've always been involved in the
So
entertainment.
whenever there's an economic issue, it's the Jews' fault, right?
What's that?
So whenever there's an economic downturn, whenever there's too many loans that are out, it's because of the Jews, right? 'Cause that's the same thing
I think a lot of it is because of Congress, you know, and there, I mean, there's a lot of
times.
So, I mean, it's, you know, obviously you can't blame everything on the Jews, and I don't blame everything on the Jews. I'm just saying that I think it's interesting how the pattern that we see in Acts 17 is identical to what we are seeing today, you know, and it's not. And here's the thing. Our church, we've been attacked a lot, you know, in a lot of areas. We've never been attacked by the Jews. Now, you know who we get attacked by? Certain lewd fellows of the baser sort. The sodomites, they come after us all the time. You know why? Because they see things that people are saying us in these media sources. You have the Anti-Defamation League. Who runs the Anti-Defamation League?
The Anti-Defamation League was started by Jews.
Right.
That's sort of been taken over by leftists in the last few years.
Yeah, but they're the ones, they put your name on lists, and then they get the homos all riled up at us. They're doing the same thing today. I mean, the Anti-Defamation League, it was started by Jews, and they go after anybody that's against them. And listen, I'm against their religion. It's an anti-Christ religion. They deny Jesus is the Christ. Do you believe that?
As someone who grew up Jewish, yes, they do. I wouldn't call it.
I got a problem with that. You know, my Bible says...
on another level.
What's that?
That's going another level, saying they're the spirit of Antichrist. That's
Okay.
John Wright, Gnostics, who said they had hidden knowledge in the books of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John.
But what if their doctrine is identical?
The Jews don't claim to have a hidden knowledge. They claim that they're looking
I don't
for
see
Messiah.
John doesn't say anything about a hidden knowledge. In 2nd John, he says there are many deceivers coming to the world who confess not that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. This is deceiver and antichrist.
That was written to Christians. That wasn't written to Jews. Those were guys.
Well, yeah, he's writing to Christians
those were
because
Christians saying Christ really had not risen. Christ really had not done this. That wasn't necessarily the Jews. But I'm on a time crunch, so I'm going to go right.
Well, what other accusations do you have that prove I'm anti-Semitic?
I don't think now these are accusations. Well, the first one was a straight up question. Second one, that's your own words.
Okay.
Third, have you taken part and would you still attend a conference similar or like Marching to Zion like you did in 2018?
Not with the same crowd, I wouldn't.
Just out of curiosity, because he's going to come up here probably a couple times due to your panel with him. Are you still doing things with Steven Anderson or groups affiliated with the new IFB?
No.
Okay. Just had to ask that straight up. All right. Do you agree with this quote then?
Okay.
Try to pull it up. This is from Paul Wittenberger's Framing of the World website here for Marching to Zion conference here.
Mm-hmm.
Christians all over the world need to wake up and understand whose God's elect are. There's nothing more frustrating than seeing a Christian drool over a Christ-rejecting, God-hating, Judaizing pervert who calls himself a Jew. Would you still agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. All I'm saying is guys that go to those kinds of conferences, again, just by using this quote, very anti-Semitic.
Okay, but here's the thing. I mean, are you okay with lifting up a people who deny that Jesus is the Christ, who believe Talmudic teachings that teach that Jesus Christ was an illegitimate child, that teach that he's in hell boiling in hot excrement? I mean, do you agree with the Talmudic teachings, that Adam had intercourse with all of the animals in the Garden of Eden, but he didn't have pleasure in that, and so that's why God ended up making Eve for him? I mean, are you okay with that kind of teaching? Do you think we should be lifting people up like that, referring to them as the chosen people? I don't see why we can't call that out.
Two things can be true at the same time. One, I've read the Talmud. Talmud is full of silly stories.
Horrible stories.
But at the same time, the Jews can be God's chosen people. Genesis 12:3 isn't written out. The Old Testament has not been removed. The day of the Lord is still coming. You know, God did not get rid of the Jewish people. He said they'd go into exile and they'd come back. That all happened. God's obviously not done with them. To say that is to deny Scripture in essence.
Okay, so that's a disagreement. That's a disagreement in eschatology and a disagreement on how to rightly divide. But how does that make one anti-Semitic?
Because then now you're specifically just continuing to attack. You know, I've witnessed the Muslims, I've witnessed the Hindus, I've witnessed the atheists. You name it, they all hold different varying views of Jesus Christ. Hindus sort of add him on. Islam rejects the crucifixion. They reject the resurrection. And if they say, you know, Jesus Christ would not have died that way. All these things. That doesn't mean I go online and absolutely bash Islamic beliefs. No, I try and reach them.
I do.
Reach them with the gospel of Christ. And what has that accomplished?
I mean, it gets the truth out there. I've witnessed to several Muslims. Okay, I'm more likely to run into a Muslim, you know, where I live than a Jew. And one of the things challenges I have with Muslims, one of the reasons they don't want to listen to Christian is because of Christians' hostility towards Muslims. And most Christians are hostile towards Muslims because they think they're doing that in defense of Jews. And the Muslims see how wicked the Jewish religion is and how they've treated the Palestinians. And as a result of that, they don't want to listen to Christians when they hear them, you know, lifting up Israel, supporting Israel, when there's all these horrible things being done to them over in places like Palestine. And so the thing is, you know, everybody's against doing something that could turn off a Jew, but yet we have no problem doing that with Muslims. I mean, isn't that some kind of phobic or something to do that kind of thing?
No, if I go over a Muslim's house, I don't eat pork. If I go over a Muslim's house, I try and hold to their customs.
I wouldn't if I went to a Jew's house. You know, if I went to a Jew's house, you know, I'd be respectful in that area because I want to get them the gospel. But you know what I'll never do? I'll never shy away from using the name of Jesus Christ around them. I'm not going to shy away from telling the truth about who the Messiah is. And, you know, and at the same time too, you know, I'm not going to tell them they're the chosen people. I mean, Jesus, okay, when speaking to Nicodemus, who was a Jew, he said to him, "You must be born again." You know why? Because flesh and blood cannot enter in the kingdom of God.
And I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree that they must be born again.
And Jews had to get a hold of that.
Born again. You know what I mean?
So here's my question.
At the same time, there's a separation between you don't have to sit there and attack the culture and say that there's part of conspiracy theories or all this other crazy stuff that you've been affiliated with. I have to speed up. My wife's telling me she's finishing up. So
okay, well, one question I have.
Questions here.
When I have one question for you. When you got saved, you know, as a Jew, what did you lose as a result of becoming a Christian?
What do you mean? What did I lose?
So I guess, did you lose any inheritance? Do you have anything coming that I, as a Gentile Christian, don't have coming?
Are you talking like mansions in heavenly places or anything like that?
Anything. I'm talking heaven or earth. Did you lose anything in getting saved? And if not,
family of God.
If you didn't lose anything, then what do you have coming that I don't as a Gentile Christian, as a joint heir with Christ? Who is
nothing, but again, you guys were grafted in, Romans chapter 10.
So I get the same covenant, same promises then?
To a certain extent. I mean, the land and all the stuff that goes into with that, I mean, that's prophecy, and we're not going to get into that again. I'm short on time.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm just saying, as a Christian, as a joint heir with Christ, you know, who was the seed of Abraham, who inherited all things. I'm a joint heir. I don't believe the Jews have anything coming for them that I don't have coming for myself as a Christian. I believe all Jews that won't believe on Christ are going to go to hell unless they get saved. And and we can have some differences on what's going to happen prophetically with them. But you know what? Telling the truth about a religion, a people, it's not hateful. It's not anti-Semitic. The Jews have been throwing that word around for a long time, as a way to just silence people when it comes to the truth about these things. And so,
anti-Semitism as a word doesn't appear.
But I have no hostility towards Jews.
All right,
I don't treat them any different.
I got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
7, do you believe Israel has the right to exist, and does it have the right to defend itself?
I mean, yeah, any nation that, comes into being, I guess, can exist, defend themselves. I mean, the UN did, recognize them as a nation. Now, did God give them any special recognition in 1948? No, I don't believe that at all. But I would say they've got as much right as, Ukraine and Russian Ukraine. They can fight about that stuff. Not my problem. The Israelis and Palestinians can fight about the land. I mean, we've been doing this kind of stuff for years. So yeah, I wish America could stay out of that whole thing. I say let them fight it out.
Okay. So you don't believe we should give any money, any support, anything like that to Israel?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
That's where I sort of figured your answer was. So you and Ilhan Omar are about in 2 peas in the pod there.
I don't even know who that is. I don't think we should give money to Ukraine either.
Well, she's not far from you, just Minnesota, so not terribly far.
Oh, she's that. Yeah, I know. Member of the squad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last question here, and then I'll let you, and then I got to get my wife home here. Are Jews today biological sons of Abraham?
I don't know. I mean, probably just as much as I am. I mean, I think we're all connected. Everybody's been so mixed. But, God forbid that I should question their, preferred race. Just like, we got to use people's preferred pronouns. But, I'll give them that. Just because it has nothing to do with the Bible stuff. So I'll give it to them. I don't really care about that. I do believe there's going to be Jews in the end times because, Jesus said, I'm not going to be able to quote this exactly right, that those that would not that I should reign over them, bring them and slay them before me. So I do believe because wrath has come on them to the uttermost, as Paul said, meaning unto the end, I believe the Jews will always be under God's wrath. I believe they're the vessels of wrath fitted for destruction in Romans chapter 9. So, yeah. I think the children of Abraham, I think they're Jews, it's more about works than it is DNA. And so when you look at a group of people out there, that are of the circumcision, professing to be, children of Abraham, all that kind of stuff, and denying Jesus is the Christ, I think they are, in fact, what the Bible talks about and prophesies about. But as far as their ancestry, don't know, don't really care.
Okay. It's very common, especially in white supremacist or even black supremacist group, that claim they are the nation of Israel. That's how you get like the 12th tribe, lost tribe of Israel, gets teachings out of England in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Black Hebrew movement, which I don't know how many of them you have out there. They were pretty common up here in the Northeast. And certain. And what they claim is that they're really the Jews, the ones that came over, that claim they're Jewish, ain't Jewish. And it just adds to that. And that's just a false theology that leads to other false theologies.
Right.
All right, that's what I have for you. So I'll give you like 2 minutes and then I got to roll.
Okay. I mean, so you still think I'm anti-Semitic? I mean, obviously we disagree, but
very much so.
Okay. So you don't think Jews own the media? They're behind a lot of these things. And if they are, okay, so if you were to do some research on this and see this, I mean, are we not allowed to bring up their religion? Is that, because to me it's about religion. It's not about a race.
I don't know what their religion has to do with the fact that if in your mind they control all these things. Because again, if you want to talk about Murdoch or even Soros, and obviously I disagree with Soros. Or I guess you would
say culture. Let me say, culture.
Most of them are not religious. I mean, I don't think Soros has entered synagogue in years.
Yeah, probably not. No, he's a secular Jew.
They would be Jewish in ethnicity, much like I'm Jewish in ethnicity. But that doesn't mean there's some great, the Soroses, and I know the conspiracies, the Rothsteins, and all these people don't get in a room and say, we're going to plan to take over the world. That's literally something people make up so they can scapegoat their own national problems. And I believe that.
Well, I don't think it takes a lot of research to figure these things out. In fact, where I would recommend you do some of your research on this stuff, Jewish museums, places that are lifting up the Jews and promoting the Jews. Okay,
Been there.
Go,
Jewish Museum in Philadelphia.
Yeah, have you been to there?
Yes.
Okay.
Been about 10, 15 years now, 20 years. Been about 15, but yes.
They will help prove my point. They brag about this stuff.
They don't brag about being in control of all the things because they know that.
Well, I mean, obviously they don't say it like we do, exactly. But I mean, it is a fact. You can these are undeniable just realities, and a lot of these things too.
So I mean, under that same premise, I guess Nigerians control everything because they are the richest immigrant population that comes over here and is actually a success. I mean, that's the same thought line there. Or Indians are, because they are one of the richer subgroups in America. I just think that's an American success story. I don't think that's a racial story. Because these guys come over here, they work their rear ends off, they do what they can, whether that be in the merchant class, whether that be in the medical class, whether that be in whatever. I have a neighbor who's a Nigerian, excellent Christian guy. His name's Maxwell. Wonderful guy, works at the UPS. He's been a mailman for 30 years, ships most of his wealth back to Ghana. In fact, he's actually in Ghana this week. And can I tell you, I don't think he's in control of everything, and he's leaving a legacy for his children and his grandchildren in terms of an inheritance. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In a generation, I'm not going to say there's some great Nigerian conspiracy.
Well, no,
to me, that's the same thought process.
No, and there's definitely certain cultures that come over here and are very successful. Yeah, Nigerians are one of them. But we don't see with Nigerians or with Indians, we don't see them, in charge of things like the Anti-Defamation League. We don't see them in charge of, we don't see them involved in a lot of the censorship and the cancel culture and all of that. They do come over here, they work hard, they're very successful. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But when you look at a lot of these things in key places in government, I mean, look how many Jews, how they're a small minority in this country, but look how many of them are represented on the Supreme Court, in Congress. And you could say that's about the success. And well, there's no doubt they're successful. There's no doubt, they're good with money. I mean, I've heard people that are pro-Jew say, give a Jew a hubcap and he'll have a car dealership within 6 months. There's no doubt about that. But
how many Jews are on the Supreme Court? There might be one.
There were 3, but some of that it was like 6 to 3. Yeah, that's changed. Ginsburg, since Ginsburg has died,
yeah, I think they're Jewish.
Kagan
literally one would sort of fit their portions of the population. When it comes to Congress, there's only about a dozen of them that are in office.
Kagan's Jewish, and
I think there was one, and there might be one on the conservative side. That's about it. I'm not sure if Alito's Jewish or not. I don't believe he is.
I don't think he's Jewish. But for a while it was like 6 to 3 Catholic, 6 Catholics, 3 Jews. But
I mean, the top conservative influencer, I would say, is Ben Shapiro. Is he part of this conspiracy? Because if so, he's doing a horrible job of doing it.
Oh, Ben Shapiro's awful. Yeah, no, have you ever heard what he says about Jesus?
I can disagree with him theologically.
But you know what? I'm disgusted with people that are like that. That'll say things like he does about Jesus. As a Christian, I'm not okay with that. I mean, people, a lot of people seem to give people a pass just because they're Jewish. I don't think that's okay. I'm a Christian first, and I'm not putting up with that stuff. But either way, when it comes to the Jewish conspiracy stuff, I mean, it's very hard for me to just deny the reality of all that. But at the end of the day, that's not the argument either. What I want to talk about is what the Bible says about that. And I believe that the Jews are under the wrath of God. And I've got Bible on that.
We're going to agree to disagree. This is me signaling my wife's outside the car. So,
okay.
Nothing. You've not changed my mind to me. You're still very anti-Semitic. I still stand by those comments, no matter how much Guy Beaumont jumps up and down. By the way, I'm about an hour and a half from Guy Beaumont. So once I have a conversation, he can knock on my door. But you've not changed my mind on these answers. And again, even if you yourself claim to not be anti-Semitic, these groups are holding you up as a trophy. And
I don't know who these groups are.
All you have to do is Google your own name, and you'll find yourself. But on that note,
I get discouraged when I Google my name.
Well, on that note, I really do have to go. I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking with me publicly about it. So I'll give you credit for that. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you later. I'm going to continue the live stream and kind of talk about some more stuff. I might get Pastor Furse on here too. And,
okay.
And Pastor Furse is even nicer than me. You shouldn't have called him anti-Semitic. So.
Okay.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye. All right, folks. So that was Peter Kratofilow, I think is how you say it. And I will give him credit for coming on and talking to me publicly about this. And that is he's going to get mad at me for this, a common trait in the Jewish world to just label everyone anti-Semitic who disagrees with them. We kind of have that same problem too in America, where you disagree with anybody who's black, you're a racist. You disagree with any woman, you're a sexist and you're a misogynist. And so where does that come from? A lot of these people that use those tactics too often use things like the Anti-Defamation League as a source for their foolishness. So it's pretty frustrating talking to people like that, but that is the world that we live in. I invited Pastor Furse to come on out. I don't know if he's going to be able to or not. I'm going to wait for him, but I did want to point out a few things here. I'm going to let everybody look at the original. This is where all this stuff came from. Now, I've had conversations on Twitter before with Peter. Hang on a second. Let me get it on here right. All right. Hopefully you can still hear me. Let me know in the live chat if I messed anything up. But in IFB sermon clips, they trying to do a lot of stuff here at once. They did a post where Pastor Reeves mentioned me and Pastor Furse, and Peter got on here and said, why isn't this working right? Looks like it's not working on the screen share. Why isn't that working? Oh, I see why. Hang on. Well, maybe it's not going to work. But he got on there saying that they're both anti-Semites, wouldn't hang around them. And so we kind of went back and forth, but I don't understand why that's not working right now. Here, let me do this. All right, let me try this again. I think I've got too many things going on my screen at one time. So let's see if it'll work now. Here we go. Nope, the screen share is deciding not to work today. But I wanted to show you, because if you go on Twitter too, if you just search his name and then also look up, oh, here we go. We got Pastor Furse on here. Let me get him on. It's a bad thing about doing this stuff live. There we go. We've got Pastor Furse on. All right, can you hear me, Pastor Furse?
On Twitter too. If you just search his name.
Oh, okay. You need to mute me there.
On here. Let me get him.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. All right, cool. Coming through. So, all right. So what do you have to say about that? Peter also accused you of being anti-Semitic. Do you think you're anti-Semitic?
On Twitter too. If you just search his name. Oh, okay.
We've got a loop going.
There. Let me get him. Can you hear me?
All right.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Well, coming through. So, all right. So what
all
you
right,
got?
I think your audio is playing in the background of me from the YouTube.
On Twitter,
You need to
too.
click that off.
You can search his name. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
I might have to go get some headphones.
Okay, yeah, why don't you do that?
I'll be right
I'll
back.
get it back just on me. All right. So anyway, I really wish I get the screen share to work. Hopefully when Pastor Furse gets back, I'll be able to play around with this and get it working. But yeah, so whenever, if you search up his name on Twitter, but here's the original tweet too, where it says, they are both anti-Semites, not really the group to be hanging around. And so, thankfully, I actually had, Pastor Guy Beaumont that he mentioned actually, asked me, hey, are you anti-Semitic? And gave me a chance to respond for myself. And I appreciate that. Most people don't do that. Most people just take the accusations and they run with it. And I think that's terrible. And I appreciate him doing that. And Pastor Beaumont does not agree with me on eschatology or what I believe about the Jews. But at the same time, some people are capable of disagreeing without just doing this modern libtard thing of just calling you a name, calling you anti-Semitic. And that's just absolutely ridiculous. And so I do appreciate that. It's rare you see that. And there was a couple pastors actually defending me there. So, all right, let's try to get Pastor Furse back on again. And hopefully we got rid of the echo. So, can you hear me? Yeah, no, I can't hear you. All right, you need to unmute yourself. Looks like it's saying ask to unmute. Yeah. Test. Nah, still can't hear you. For some reason you're muted.
Unmute. All right. How about
there
that?
we go. There we go. I can hear you now.
Is
All
there
right.
feedback? Is there feedback?
So go ahead and give us your thoughts on that whole thing while I try to see if I can get the screen share working, because I really want to show some stuff.
Yeah. So Peter's like so many guys that are in the IFB or in evangelical circles. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. I wanted, at the very end of that conversation, I wanted to ask him, so do you think God's chosen people go to hell? Are there God's chosen people in hell? Because what's the point of calling them God's chosen people if they're not born again?
Mm-hmm.
And how, I mean, honestly, it's just like the real estate. How important is the real estate if it's all going to burn anyway? So if you're going to burn in hell because you didn't ever get saved, why are we making such a big deal about them being God's chosen people? And why would we even make a big deal? Why would we pet someone's ego if that's only going to lead to them not wanting Jesus when they're already quote unquote God's chosen people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
I don't know how we witness to Jews, when we get done, right after telling them, hey, you're God's chosen people, God's got a special covenant with you. You've even got, he couldn't answer what he has coming that I don't.
Yeah. So what's
nobody can answer that question.
And he asked you about, about the ethnicity of Jews. Well, didn't the Bible tell us not to pay attention to endless genealogies? And I can't say his last name either, but can Peter trace back his lineage all the way to Abraham? And if he can, will it matter? Does it do anything? I think you're correct. I think all of our DNA goes back to Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
I think the DNA of every human being funnels back down. But who cares? We're not supposed to pay attention to endless genealogies. You talk about racism and prejudice. That's what all this leads to.
Mm-hmm.
Schofieldism leads to prejudice and racism. And that's what this is. Whereas Galatians says there's neither Jew nor Greek.
Mm-hmm.
There's neither Jew nor Gentile. We're all one in Christ. We're all of the same family in Christ. In Christ, the same are the children of Abraham. By faith in Christ are we the children of Abraham. And so he has made of one blood, and he has made of one all nations. He has made the twain one. Ephesians says the two become one. We are no longer separate. We are one commonwealth. And so the beauty of the gospel is it ties us all together, and we all become the children of God. We all become born again into one family, and we are the bride of Christ, and there is no separation as they want to say it. And so whether he wants to admit it or not, he's very prejudiced against others who are not, quote unquote, God's chosen people. And he's defending unsaved people for no reason.
Right.
No reason at all.
Yeah. And that's the thing, we're bad people because we put no difference between them.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, them putting themselves, himself included, above the rest of us, that's fine. And, but yet we're the bad ones. But, it's amazing too, because, he mentioned that he's read the Talmud and, that he
says it's silly. What did he say?
It's silly stuff in there.
No, it's like silly. It's satanic. It's antichrist.
Yeah.
And he did not like it. He did not like it when you inferred that Jews are antichrist. But First John is not about Gnosticism by itself. First John is clearly saying, because John says they were of us, but they went out from us. Mm-hmm. And so John is talking about his own people who will not receive him in John chapter 1. And in First John, it says, if they deny the Son, they do not have the Father.
Right.
And then in third John, it says you're not even to bid them Godspeed, these people that are antichrist. And so you talk about not blessing or the opposite of blessing these people. We're to recognize that these people should not be upheld as quote unquote God's chosen people. That's just baloney. On the other hand, that doesn't mean I'm a racist or I'm anti-Semitic. This whole argument that he's trying to promote is the same thing as me telling you that I did not vote for Barack Obama and I do not like Barack Obama. And you saying to me, well, then that means you're a racist. You don't like black people. That's the whole logic here. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling the truth about an unsaved group of people who claim to be God's chosen people. And it's making quote unquote Bible believers mad. What's up with that? Come on. I have a brain. I'm supposed to use it. And I also have a Bible where in my Bible, according to Peter's definition of anti-Semitism, in my Bible, Jesus and John the Baptist are anti-Semites then. Because Jesus said that they were a generation of vipers. Mm-hmm. They said, father's
broad brushed them.
Our father's Abraham. And Jesus said, no, your father's the devil.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you have a problem with Jesus and John the Baptist, then I guess you have to just work around that as a theologian.
Right.
But on the other hand, I'm in good company if John the Baptist and Jesus are saying that. And I'll take my chances as far as losing any blessings of Abraham.
Yeah.
on that line.
Right. Yeah. So what started this, and unfortunately my screen share is not working right, but and
I know what you're going to say, and I just want to say that in that tweet he mentioned me and you.
Right.
He said that you and I were both anti-Semites, but then when I offered to come on the show, he didn't want us together.
No. But yeah,
he it
actually
didn't want us to go on together.
Right. What originally started him calling me anti-Semitic, it goes back on November 29th. I did a post that says, in case anyone isn't sure about my position, I am 100% against Hanukkah. And I put a statement on there on purpose that I knew people would not understand. I believe I posted my link, and I'd been posting my link, and I was posting clips of a sermon I did from back in 2020 about Hanukkah. And so I said, the temple never saved anyone, Jesus saves. Now, that's not going to make sense to a lot of people, including Peter, because they don't even know what Hanukkah is about and where it comes from. The Hanukkah that people are practicing today is very modern. It's a very modern practice. And I knew exactly the kind of response that I would get. And so some of the things I did when the conversation came up, I asked, why aren't you mourning the destruction of the temple like they did in the Old Testament? The temple got wiped out. It's been gone for almost 2,000 years. Now, he doesn't understand that question either, but what he had done before is he mentioned how Jesus celebrated Hanukkah, because people always like to go, and he said, tell that to Jesus, who celebrated it in John 10, 22, and 23, where all it does is it mentions how Jesus went to Jerusalem and walked in Solomon's porch and the feast of the dedication. And what's funny, in that story, the Jews came along and were doubting that he was the Christ. Well, that feast that is the only place in the Bible where the feast of dedication is mentioned. That's the only place in the Bible. Hanukkah did not come out. The earliest writings you find about Hanukkah are in the Talmud, that came out hundreds of years later. So before this, where we can find out about the Feast of the Dedication is in the Maccabees, the book of the Maccabees. It's in the Apocrypha. And the Feast of the Dedication was something that they did after they destroyed the temple. When the Greeks came through and destroyed the temple, after they did it, or not destroyed it, but after they had desecrated it, they had a cleansing of the temple, and they rededicated it, and they started doing the sacrifices again. And so to celebrate them being able to use the temple again, after years of not being able to use it, they started the Feast of Dedication. And that was something that was to be done at the temple. So before that, they had a time of mourning that they did every year, that they talked about in Jeremiah. And in the book of Zechariah, they wanted to know, there's a chapter where they were asking, hey, should we still be observing this time of weeping and fasting? Because they had no temple. And the prophet told them, hey, if you've learned your lesson, then yes, you can end this practice of weeping and fasting because you have a temple again. They don't know any of this stuff. Even Christians, they don't know any of these details. So the truth is, if you're going to be true to Judaism, you should be having a time of weeping and fasting because there is no temple. But if you're a Christian, that would be just stupid because we don't need a temple. Our body is the temple of Christ.
And if you're sola scriptura, if you're only the Bible, if you're Bible only, and you're going to criticize the Mormons for having other books besides the Bible, then I think you need to stop paying attention to endless genealogies and traditions of men and stuff like that. I think the reason why I could care less about the Hanukkah is because my Bible doesn't tell me to talk about the Hanukkah or to worship or to be involved with that. If it's in the Bible, then I'll pay attention to it. Passover is in the Bible, but the Passover they have today is not the Passover of the Bible. The Bible tells me that Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. So I celebrate Christ, and they do not. And you see these Bible-believing, quote-unquote, churches that are having seders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're getting away from the Bible and into tradition. And there's a whole bunch of people out there that are just blind to anything, and they just turn a deaf ear to any negativity, because if it's Jewish, then it must be godly, and if it's Jewish, then it must be good. And they're just willfully ignorant on this, and we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware that the apostles in the book of Acts had public enemy number one was Christians, and public prosecutors was Jewish people. They were chasing them from city to city. They were the ones, the Bible says, that crucified the Lord. And it's because they were Antichrist. He did not like it. He did not like it when you mentioned them being Antichrist. He did not like that at all.
He ran to that Gnostic stuff.
Yeah, and he's just denying the Bible when he does that.
Yeah,
because
they don't get that from the Bible.
Yeah.
The only place we see the term Antichrist in the Bible is in 1 John.
Yeah,
I mean, right?
Yeah, the only mention of Jew in Revelation is the synagogue of Satan.
Right. Yeah, and so
there are Jews that are not.
But the thing about that, what's interesting about that, it's literally a people whose description is identical to the Jews. Also, but they want to tell you from history, well, no, that's the Gnostics. Okay. Well, here's the other thing about that too.
And they got to go outside the Bible to explain.
Yeah, they always have to go outside the Bible to explain that.
They don't like it that I can take the 66 books of the Word of God. Right. And show them why they're wrong. But they'll go to their libraries and try to tell me that they're right, which makes them extra biblical right off the bat.
Right. And so that's the thing. The Bible couldn't be more clear. Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is a Christ? Do the Jews deny that Jesus is a Christ? Yeah.
It's pretty simple. He was talking about the secular Jews, Soros and everything. But here, listen, the reason why Jews, like no other group of people, are guilty of these things as a whole is because they deny Jesus Christ. I mean, there are people out there who are not saved, born again, but they are not deniers of Jesus Christ, such as Catholics and other religions. They are not nearly as opposed to Jesus Christ as are this group of people. It's in their heritage to deny Christ. Their Talmud says that Jesus is in hell, boiling in his own excrement. That's what his quote unquote silly Talmud says.
Yes. So, hey, I want to talk about this too. I haven't been paying much attention to the live chat. I just saw this on Twitter though. But Joe, pastor, I believe he's a pastor, Joe Shakur, who I believe also claims to be of Jewish descent. He put on their vessels of wrath with a question mark. Now, shockingly, when you tell people that the Jews are the vessels of wrath,
yeah,
they look at you like a deer in a headlights.
Right.
And it's like, and listen, there's a reason the Calvinists have been destroying the dispensationalists in Romans 9 for years.
Yep.
But Romans 9 could not be more clear. He's specifically talking about verse 4, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of God, and the promises. The old the covenants, they were made for them. He's talking about the Jews. He goes on to say, for as though the word of God hath taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of promise are counted for the seed. So that passage couldn't be any more clear there. So I'm not going to do a full exposition of Romans chapter 9, but when he says, Paul starts this chapter out, and everybody ignores this part. He starts this out saying, I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart, for I could wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, because judgment was coming for Israel. And Paul understood that. Paul knew that he did not want to see, physical judgment come on a physical nation that he was a part of and that he loved. But you know what he said? Who am I to speak against the potter? He said in verse 18, therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, on whom he will he hardeneth. Now the Calvinists love to use that about individuals, but no, this is comparing Jacob to Esau here. This is comparing the children of the flesh from the children of promise. Yeah. And it says, nay, but O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? That is physical Israel. Yeah. And that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy. That's the believers, which he hath afore prepared unto glory, even us, whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, but of the Gentiles. So the children of the flesh, they are the vessels of wrath. The children of promise, they're the vessels of mercy. And we are vessels of mercy, not by our bloodline, but by our faith. And so was Paul, because he was of faith. But Paul was very clear in 1 Thessalonians 2 that the wrath has come upon them to the uttermost. We're saved to the uttermost, to the end. They're under God's wrath to the end. And so when people look at me like shocked with that, it's like, this is real clear.
Yeah. And so when you call someone anti-Semitic, my mind says you can't be any more anti-Semitic than to tell somebody that's not saved that they're already good to go because they're chosen of God, and to defend them against anyone who tries to tell them the truth about the fact they need to be born again. I wonder if Peter and people like him are burning as much energy trying to tell the people of Israel they need to be born again versus trying to tell us to stop saying naughty things about them.
Right.
As if that's what I do all day. The point is that I'm anti-false. I'm anti-lies. And this is probably one of the biggest lies in the world right now. And that's why, as you were saying earlier, when you were talking to him, that's why the Muslims and the whole other crowd are hard to reach, because most of the Bible believers have been pro-Israel. And so they see Christianity as being a pro enemy, pro their enemy. And so we need to recognize that neither Jew nor Gentile are going to heaven, and they all need to be born again, and they all need to be preached to. But it's awfully hard to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ in Israel. And oh, by the way, my church, we support a saved Jew in Israel right now. I'm not going to give you his name because he doesn't want his name out there because he's kind of undercover right now. Mm-hmm. But he lives in Israel. He got saved in America. He was born in a Jewish family. He was born again into God's family. He understands. He knows what it takes to reach people like that. And he knows that patting them on the head and doing humanitarian aid is not giving them the gospel of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. So I can support that. That guy doesn't have to agree with me on everything about eschatology, but I know that he's trying to win the people there to the Lord Jesus Christ. Yep. And these guys that are just going over there and just patting them on the head and saying, you're God's chosen people, they're actually helping to damn them. They're loving them to death is what they're doing.
Right. Well, hey, I've got Pastor Guy Beaumont. He kind of got a lot of this stuff going. He wants to join us on here. So give me a minute to add him. Now it's not letting me admit him. Pastor Beaumont, if you're watching this, could you try entering in one more time? So, well, hey, I appreciate you coming on, Pastor Furse, and wanted to give you a chance to say something. So,
you want me to check out then?
Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll talk to you later.
All right.
So yeah, Pastor Guy Beaumont, he's also from Pennsylvania. He was the one that originally called this out when Peter got going, and I appreciate him kind of taking him to task. I wish more people would do that kind of thing. You never help your side by lying about your opponents. It doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't work. And so, all right. So, Pastor Beaumont, can you hear me? Can you hear me, preacher?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. So, hey, thanks for coming on. Appreciate this. So, after watching that, give me your honest opinion. I know you don't agree with everything I've said, but I mean, do you think I'm anti-Semitic?
No. Let me say a few things here. I didn't listen to your whole conversation with Brother Furse. I don't know the man. Mm-hmm. And I listened to the first 5 minutes, but honestly, since we disagree eschatologically, mm-hmm. I didn't see the point.
Right.
I want to address your conversation with Peter and what was said back and forth. I literally just told him on Twitter, I was hoping he would either prove that you were an anti-Semite or apologize. Mm-hmm. That was really the option. Either prove that you are or apologize for that accusation. He did neither. He thought he would give you a gotcha moment with his comments about the Holocaust, mm-hmm. And some of those other things, Anderson, that kind of stuff. They were just weak jabs that weren't founded in anything that was factual. You answered his questions. You are for the Jews getting saved. You believe God loves them. You witness to them. You have no issue with them than you do with anybody else. So I'm not really sure how that comes across as anti-Semite. You asked him about him knowing that most of the businesses are owned by Jews, and he denied that. Like,
I know.
I literally, before I got on here, I jumped on Google and I said businesses owned by Jews. And almost the first 10 links are all Jewish organizations. Yeah. That list all the businesses that they own that are Google and Facebook and Starbucks and Baskin Robbins. Mm. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Like, right. There's nothing conspiracy about that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about that. That is, to quote you, a fact.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
It's just reality.
You know? I'm listening to, and he interrupted you constantly. He said, I'll give you the last 2 minutes. As soon as you got a sentence out, he interrupted you. He couldn't, you gave him Bible for everything. When he denied the spirit of Antichrist, I was just baffled.
I know.
I'm baffled. As a Bible believer, I'm baffled. Because that's not just for the Jew, that's for anybody that teaches anything other than Christ coming in the flesh. Yeah. So for him to deny that, again, he's young. He is brash, which I admire. When I was that age, I still am, was very brash, but there's too much ignorance that's tied into it that hurt him. Mm-hmm. And that said, he made a comment on my Facebook post a few weeks ago about a specific conference that was very uncalled for. And I said, bro, I would never say that. That is just wrong. And he deleted it. So he showed me that he had some maturity in that, but then to go over to the crowd that doesn't even know if we have a Bible that's perfect and call you, and I forget who else, Brother Furse, I think, anti-Semitic. And then I challenged him privately on it, and he had no facts. And then I asked you publicly, and you proved that you weren't, at least by your words. Mm-hmm. I don't know your heart. I don't know what's going on in your head, but you put publicly that you're not. And he said, I still believe it. Then after a 20-minute conversation where you literally answered every question he had, gave lots of Bible, and gave great logical answers, and he said, I still believe you're anti-Semitic. It's I mean, wow. I listened to it, and I just went, wow.
Right.
Wow.
Well,
we disagree.
Right.
Eschatologically. Mm-hmm. But I agree. Jews have to get saved the same way we get saved.
Yeah. Right.
I believe the nation of Israel is God's chosen people. I believe that. And I'm not going to go back and forth. You believe what you believe. I believe what I believe. But that doesn't mean that you hate Jews. It doesn't mean that you're anti-Semitic. It's just, wow. I don't agree with you that they are fit for God's wrath. I disagree with your interpretation of Romans 9. But again, that's your eschatological view. That is not a racist viewpoint.
Right. Well, and I appreciate you. Yeah. And I'm really glad you came on here, because something that I kind of deal with, because, I'm from, more your world originally. And I feel like I'm always have to convince people on my side that, pro-Jew, pre-trib, IFB people, they're not these horrible people. But the problem is you have guys like the crazy extremists, your Ruckmanite types, guys like Peter. They go and they throw out the crazy accusations. They throw out the anti-Semitism claim. All these other just extreme things, and it makes, your side look like nut jobs. And that's why it's good when you see your side being foolish to call it out, and everybody's just lucky that I am so for the IFB world. I don't want to broad brush him. I don't want to paint him in a bad light, but it would be easy for me, to feature guys like him and to feature some of the other crazies, to just kind of discredit the entire other side. But I'm just not going to do that, because I actually know the other side and I know the hearts of these people. And I do think that, and while there are key areas of disagreement, unfortunately, it's been very difficult for me to get opportunities to actually talk about real issues. Because one thing, and I don't understand why my screen share is not working, but I just typed in Peter's name. Go on Twitter, type in @Peter Kratofilow, and then Anderson. And the guy constantly wants to talk about Steven Anderson. And he's not the only one that's like that. And especially in these threads with me, I mean, there's just tweet after tweet after tweet. It's just all Anderson, Anderson, Anderson. And it's because Anderson's a controversial guy. A lot of people don't like him. And so, if he can just, keep throwing his name out there and then get all of his baggage attached to me, he's going to win the argument. But, this argument, I never bring him up. I don't quote him. I'm trying to, I'll quote Bible, and then people want to talk about Anderson. And the one thing I don't want to do, because I'm not in fellowship with him anymore, but I still refuse to take these people's bait who like to still throw his name around. I think just hoping I'll just start bashing him, and saying all these terrible things about him. Because Nathan did the same thing with you, and you didn't take the bait. I just yesterday on my interview with Pastor Reeves brought up how Nathan constantly brings up, do you know this about Pastor Tommy? Anytime somebody agrees with me about anything, and he did the same thing. He tried connecting you, accusing you of defending Steven Anderson, because Pete is calling me an anti-Semite with no basis. And then all of a sudden now, you're a new IFB Steven Anderson lackey. I mean, that's ridiculous. But that's the way that crowd works. I think it's wrong and disgusting. said, and this is the first time you and I have ever spoken with each other, but I appreciate you calling it out publicly, because I wish more people would do that kind of thing. These people are so dishonest, and I feel like Pete is just a guy. He's got one foot in the IFB, another foot in the reform or recovering fundamentalist crowd. He's always trying to make these guys think good of him. And you know what? Nathan was egging him on through this whole thing and using him. And he didn't get the memo that, he got the memo. You never back down from what you say, no matter how stupid it is. But he didn't get the memo that when you get challenged publicly, and that you run and hide. Because I've called Nathan out many times trying to get him to publicly talk with me, and he won't do it because he's scared. But Pete didn't get the memo on that. He was supposed to duck and hide, and he didn't. He came on here.
I made this statement last night. When someone that I know, that I see, is being lied about like that publicly, like, I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to hang out. You and I have never spent 1 minute together on a phone or in person. We had a couple debates on Twitter where we were at complete opposite, and we were both throwing hand grenades at each other. So, I when they came after Reeves, and Brother Reeves and I never had a conversation one time, but the RFP crowd came after Reeves, and what they said was blatantly false.
I know. Well,
I defend.
Yeah. Oh, hey, look, Peter. Peter put on Twitter a thing about me in the Anti-Defamation League. I didn't even know I made that. That's where you got.
So hang on. Based on him saying that, does that make Jesus a drunk?
I don't know. I mean,
because he was accused by the wrong crowd of being a wine bibber and all that, and a glutton. So, therefore, because they guilted him by association, does that mean Jesus was those things, since somebody's mentioning your name?
Right.
That's so childish. That's so that's so immature.
He's using the same source of people who called Jesus a wine bibber. The Jews that he admitted the Anti-Defamation League was started by Jews. He said it's been hijacked by the leftists. It's always been leftists. I mean, good night. So that's pretty funny. I didn't even know I was on their list. I'll take it as a badge of honor, I guess.
I don't. And here's one. Years ago, Steve Anderson's website, he had something called a blacklist or something like that, of preachers that he disagreed with on repentance and put their names out there. And then he had a list of preachers that he agreed with. My name was on that list. I've never met Steve Anderson. I've never preached with him. I would never preach with Steve Anderson, ever. So does that mean that he and I agree on everything because my name was on his page? Like that rationale it's grasping for straws.
Yeah.
Here's mine. And here's what so to me, there's a difference between culture and religion. And I think you tried to make that distinction with Peter, but he, for some reason, couldn't grasp that.
Right.
When he said that the Talmud just has silly stories. No, they are absolutely diabolical, ungodly, wicked, satanic. Defend that and just call it silly was horrible. You have to be, this was Jonah's problem. You've got to be more loyal to the Lord's word than you are to a nation.
Right.
And we disagree. I believe Israel is God's chosen people. I believe the Jews are God's chosen people, but they still have to be saved. They still live wickedly. I don't promote them in any shape, way, kind of form any more than I do a white person, a black person, a Jewish person, Hindu, Buddhist, Asian. I mean, you go right down the line.
Right.
That's not.
Yeah. You just believe there's still something coming good for them in the future, and so we can disagree on that. At the end of the day, we both, for right now, when it counts, we both feel the same way about how they need what they need, and that's Jesus Christ.
They need
and
Christ.
I don't think you're going to shy away from using the name of Jesus around them.
Correct.
But
correct. No, your answers to him, as I was listening to you using Bible and trying to deal with his questions and answer them logically and scripturally, and him calling you an anti-Semite, I thought that you were spot on. Again, doesn't mean I agreed with you talking about them being fitted for God's wrath. I disagree with that. But that's not the point of being anti-Semitic. And he was literally all over the place.
Yeah.
He did not, with a clear conscience, stand before God and say, you are anti-Semite. Nobody listening to that conversation can call you with a clear conscience an anti-Semite.
Mm-hmm.
What they can say is he disagrees with the Jews' position in the end times.
Mm-hmm.
That's been every post-tribber, mid-wrath, you name it. That's been their position, but nobody's ever called them anti-Semite.
Yep.
Nobody's
Well,
ever.
Yeah.
And I was I'm going to be honest with you, Tommy. I was hoping he had something to point at that you said, where basically you hate Jews, you're hostile towards Jews, Jews can't be saved, Jews are trash, like any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And you had none of that. And for your answers, I commend you. Again, doesn't mean, I'm already being accused that, now you're my crowd and Anderson's my crowd and all that. But anybody who knows me, especially in the Northeast, and if you've seen my persona on Twitter, anybody who knows me knows that is the furthest thing from reality. That's the blessing of being independent.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to agree with each other. Unfortunately, if you join the other side, the other crowd, you have to walk in line and step. Otherwise, you can't fit in with them. But, you can be post-trib and I can still break bread with you. If I ever thought you said something that was anti-Semitic, I would call you out publicly for it. Mm-hmm. The same way that I call. And if I said something like that, I'm okay with people calling me out. Pete owes you an apology.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, but I do, because you mentioned too, Anderson. I'm defensive when I see people being lied about, and whether you like Anderson or don't like Anderson, he gets lied about a lot, and that was
I get out a lot. I know
right.
that.
And that's one of the reasons too. One of the things that got me involved with him. I defended him on some stuff, and I never saw myself as like identical to him and everything. But I liked most of what he was doing, and I didn't like seeing him lied about, and I wanted to defend him. I've had to separate myself just because of a lot of his following. If you get too close to him, you kind of get a lot of other crazy followers and preachers with you, and it's just like I couldn't do it anymore. But at the end of the day too, I still don't want to hear people lie about him. It's like, you can disagree with him about stuff. You can even not like him for some things, but you never do yourself a favor when you lie about him, and I think people have really hurt themselves with that. And but that's how I've gotten to know him. I defended him, when I think he deserved to be defended, guys like Pastor Reeves, that's kind of how I got to know him. And I guess I'm sick of, watching people in the IFB just let their own crowd get away with, foolish lies like that. And to me, if the more I dislike somebody, the more I don't want to see them lied about. And I've been saying this a lot, and I'll say it again. Anytime you lie about somebody, you discredit all the truths that are out there about them. And there are people out there that, that people need to stay away from, and that we should put warnings out there against. But when you lie about them, it gives them something that they can latch onto to prove that you're the fraud and that they're the victim. And we love victims in 2022. And so sometimes we just need to say, I don't really agree with that person, everything. I'm sure they're probably a good guy, not somebody I'm going to want to fellowship with, but you can't lie about them. But that's the go-to for everything. You disagree, anti-Semitic, you disagree, they're not saved. And I don't like that. And I've gotten in trouble with every crowd I've ever ran with because I defend people when they get lied about. I don't care. I don't care what crowd I'm supposed to be a part of. I don't want to be a part of any crowd that's going out there lying about people.
Agreed.
And I'm not, and when I know something is a fact, I'm not just going to sit there and pretend that, I don't know. I'm just opinionated. If I'm sitting there in a conversation, we're having a roundtable discussion with a bunch of preachers, and they start ripping on somebody, even if I don't like, if they say something that's not true, I'm not just going to sit there and nod my head in agreement. I was like, well, that's actually not right. And, people don't like that. And so
the two biggest, I've said this now for a couple of decades, the two biggest flaws in the IFB movement our pride and insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And until we're willing to admit that we're not as great as we think we are, and B, not get butthurt when somebody says that,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be a great day for us as preachers. You know, these guys that set themselves up. I hear these terms, the IFB kings and the IFB elite and the IFB hierarchy. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that to a degree. I've had this conversation with a few preachers that we would both know. But the bottom line is there are those who are perceived that way. And I mean, I questioned a periodical one time. I wrote a letter to the person who runs it, and I immediately got a phone. Well, not immediately. Within an hour, I got a phone call from another preacher who I didn't even send an email to, who would have in another state. How would he even know that I emailed this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Who said, no, you can't do stuff like that. You can't do that. And I thought, this is a problem, because number one, if you're going to put it out public for everybody to read, you've got to be open to hearing people comment on it. And number two, you can't gossip and send that off to somebody else and have someone else do your dirty. That's just that kind of stuff is too prevalent, and we're afraid. Look, I love when you say, "Let's go online and talk about it."
Yeah,
you have. I mean, to say that you're melting or having a meltdown, like Nate said, cracked me up, because you literally said, "I'm not anti-Semite. Why don't you come on live and we'll talk about it?" That's not a meltdown. A meltdown is, where's Matthew 18? Who's bringing these accusations? Why didn't you come to me? But that's a meltdown.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why Nathan stuck his head in here, other than he loves seeing IFB guys go at it, because in the end, he thinks he looks better because of it. But anyone who knows how the game is played knows that that's just silly. Nathan's a silly guy.
Yeah.
But I just to make sure I'm understood, I disagree with you eschatologically. I'm a pre-trib, pre-mill, and I believe that the nation of Israel is God's chosen people. That being said, I do not think you're anti-Semite. I don't think you said anything that I have read or heard or seen that would make you anti-Semite. I think Pete is wrong for saying that. And now hearing you say it to him and answer his questions, for him to say you are still anti-Semitic, he is either a liar or he's delusional. I don't know if there's a third option.
Right.
And I know there's a couple of guys. Pastor Joe Shakur he's commented to you on Twitter. You'll see it when you go on there if you haven't. He's Jewish, and he asked some questions, and I think Joe is extremely intelligent. I think he's very logical, and I would love to, even see you answer some of his questions or him talk to you. But again,
yeah, you know what? I'll talk to Joe. He just said on here, the take on vessels of wrath is not just eschatology, it's soteriology. It's close to his take on homosexuals as how they cannot be saved. Not only is it unbiblical, it shapes your thinking if you see Jews as vessels of wrath fit for destruction. That statement is pure ignorance right there.
I can't see it. And before you answer it, let me answer it for you, just from my understanding.
Okay.
I don't see it. You have already said you believe Jews can be saved.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know your position. If you think homosexuals can't be saved, I would disagree with you on that, because I've seen them saved in my church, and now they're married and have families and everything else. But that's beside the point. You have already stated that you believe Jews can be saved, and they need to be saved by trusting in Jesus Christ, just like everybody else. How does that disagree soteriologically?
I'll tell you why. It's because he's been listening to a Calvinist take on that, who believe that the vessels of wrath are those who cannot be saved because of the Calvinist reprobate doctrine, which I completely deny. In fact, the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 11 makes it crystal clear that they're not cast away. They're not reprobate. He said, I'm of Israel. Paul used himself as proof that Jews can still be saved. What I believe when it comes to the vessels of wrath, I believe if you are a Jew, if you are just the physical seed, when Jesus Christ returns, if all you've got going for you is that you're just of the physical people, you're in for destruction.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Yeah. So the thing is,
just like I would say that for Gentile too.
Right. But every one of them could be saved. So it's not the same thing. And I'm gonna be nice to Pastor Shakur. He hasn't called me names or anything, but he clearly misunderstands. I would challenge him though to take a lesson from Peter, and I'd be careful throwing accusations around publicly, unless he has the humility to back down, take them back, or apologize. If he wants to call me and talk to me, I'd love to talk with him about it.
My wife makes a statement walking around the house with our family, and it's a great statement. She says this: ask questions, don't make statements.
Yes.
Ask questions. Again, when you got 4 boys and 2 girls and teenagers and young adults and all that kind of stuff, we tend to make statements instead of asking a question. And it would really help some of us if we would ask questions. Like if Pete thought you were anti-Semitic and I didn't know he was Jewish, I didn't know that at all. So that was news to me. If he thought you were Jewish, let me ask you this, since he's hurled that accusation out now several times publicly, has Pete ever come to you and said, hey, Brother Tommy, do you hate the Jews? Do you come across as anti-Semitism? Do you mind if I ask you some questions because I'm confused right now? Has he ever done that? No. So the first thing you see is just public statements saying you're anti-Semitic.
Right. Yeah. And, one thing I've done several times, if I'm going to preach against Calvinists or whatever, I've on a couple different occasions, I've literally called Calvinists up. It's like, hey, this is what I think you guys believe. Am I representing this right? And I love having those conversations with people because I really think that sharpens you up. And if I want to change people's minds, I will discredit myself if I just get up and I destroy a straw man.
Sure.
I'll hurt my own cause. And these guys, it's like, they have to beat up a straw man so they can feel like they're beating up something. And, but again, I got to give Peter credit. He did come and publicly talk. Now, he kind of had to, because I called him out and he said he would. I don't know if he was taking me serious or not, and I was dead serious. But I'll give him credit for that. Most guys won't do that. A Nathan Cravette, he's not going to do anything public with me. There's absolutely no way. And I think that's a shame. And I think if you're going to talk about somebody, and this is just kind of a rule I've had, if I talk about you publicly, then I should be able to talk with you publicly or privately. Some people might not want to do something public like this, but they might be willing to, I should at least take a phone call.
Sure.
And I stick by that. And I always keep that in mind. Anytime I'm up publicly talking about somebody, that is an invitation for them, for me to talk publicly with them too. Because I don't think it's fair to do that. The RFP guys, they've featured me on their show many times. They name me at Idea Day, but those guys will not get on a public platform with me there and discuss anything with me. And it's because, all they can do is act hip and cool while being unchallenged. And when it comes to those who are willing to stand up to them, they back down fast. And
they proved that this morning. It's let your yay be nay and your nay, let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. Not, we'll circle back to that later on.
Yeah.
Patience and wait. No, you stuck your nose out, you grabbed the dog by the ears, and then you got upset when you got pinned back and asked to provide an answer. And Nate looks just as foolish right now as Pete does. And I'm gonna be honest with it. I hope a lot of preachers. I'm glad Brother Joe threw his hat in here and made some comments, and I hope other preachers do. But be honest, use integrity, be truthful. Don't tag random names to people that have nothing to do with it. Ask your position and go with your answer. And unless you say anything otherwise, it is what it is. Again, if you come out next week and say something like, I hate the Jews, then I'm okay with anybody labeling you as anti-Semitic, because that's an anti-Semitic statement.
Right.
But for you to say, I just don't believe they're God's chosen people, but God loves them, God died for them, and they need to get saved, and I'll witness to them. There's nothing in the very definition of anti-Semite is having hostility towards them or hatred towards them. And you have neither of those. You disagree with a theological position at the end times, a prophetic conversation. That is all. And for anybody to make that out to be anything else is being completely disingenuous. And that's the stuff, honestly, that hurts the IFB movement.
Yeah.
And it needs to stop. It needs to stop.
Yeah, I agree. And, I said, I don't particularly like getting, doing these drama streams and stuff like that. But you know what? I'm tired of being called an anti-Semite, and I'm tired of the IFB putting up with stuff like that. And, we need some honesty. And so I was refreshed at seeing, guys like you, Pastor Pomeroy too. I've talked to him before. Me and Pastor Pomeroy, we disagree on that, but we were able to have a civil, even enjoyable conversation with each other over it. And
well, let me say this to you. In the last, I guess that started at like 10 or 11 o'clock last night. So in the last almost 15 hours, I've probably gotten over 50 text messages and DMs that are in agreement with you, that are guys who don't agree with you eschatologically, but they are in agreement with you not being anti-Semite and that Pete has crossed the line. And I got 6 kids. I own a thriving business, and my church is doing wonderfully. And I travel all over the place. I leave Saturday for Colorado to preach a 10-year anniversary for a young lady who I won when she was 10 years old as a bus kid here in the south side of Bethlehem. And she married a preacher, and they're coming up on their church's 10-year anniversary in Colorado, and they're flying me out there. I'm busy. I'm not driving an hour and a half to go sit on Pete's front porch where he is just going to say, no, you're an anti-Semite because you believe in conspiracies. He even said you believe in a lot of Jewish conspiracies, and I asked him to name them, and he can't. He won't. Like, I just, this is the kind of stuff that is just, it's so dumb. Like, I don't even want to say it's hurtful. It's just dumb.
Right.
Like, it's just stupid.
Well,
it's childish.
Well, and the thing is, I even threw it out there too, that, because of, people that I've hung out with, because of my position, I have enemies out there who have lied about me. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're reading about me on the Anti-Defamation League, I can see why you're going to have some negative thoughts about me. Pete didn't even bring up some of the good stuff that I thought he would. I mean, I had some things prepared, ready to show up on screen, because I see a lot of the stuff that's out there about me and the, misrepresentations. And, when I first got involved with an online ministry and the online attacks started coming, I got really overwhelmed at first because, one, I wasn't used to it, but it's like I felt like I've got to respond to all of this stuff because I can't have people thinking these things about me. And then I came to the quick realization, I can't. There's so much stuff. And I was like, you know what? My real friends will ask me about it. And, and I've been sad in the last few years at things that I found out people thought about me that were just completely false, and they never talked to me about it. That kind of thing hurts, but it's like, I can't go chasing down every rumor. Now, I'm just going to tell you what's probably going to happen with you. Now that you did this, you're going to get labeled Andersonite, they're going to accuse you of everything I get accused of. And you know what they'll probably do? Because this did not go very well for Pete, and I think he probably got most of his info from Nathan, they're going to keep digging. And there's other stuff out there that looks worse. And so they'll try to throw that too. But I'm telling you, there's answers for all this stuff. There's people out there, they take clips, things I say completely out of context. And yeah, when we see IFB preacher clips, they're not the ones that do it with me. It's mostly atheists that do it with me. But, you could take a short clip of somebody saying something and make it sound really bad. Like that quote that's on the Anti-Defamation League. You go listen to that whole sermon where I'm talking about all that stuff, it's very clear, what I'm talking about, and anybody with any honesty is going to see through it. But, but at the end of the day, people need to do the right thing. And I hope I'm nice to people that when people call me up and they disagree with me, this is another policy I have. If somebody is honest enough to call me, disagree with me, but they do it in the right way, even if we completely disagree and I think they're teaching crazy heresy, I don't publicly go after those people. But when you publicly attack, it's another story. The gloves come off. And so I hope this is a lesson to all these people out there who would disagree with me, that, before you just go take something you heard on the internet and run with it, you should talk to me first. I promise I'll be nice. And we got attacked a few years ago where we had major persecution online from a lot of the homosexual crowd, the atheists, and they put so much stuff out there online about me. It's mind-boggling. I mean, my name's trash online. Like I said, I don't Google my name because it's too discouraging what I see out there. But it's like, the people that know me, the people that care, the people who are honest, they will talk to me about it. Those who are just looking for something to nail me with, they'll eat it up. And Nathan, one time his son got on Twitter and started, using stuff that homosexual atheists put out there about me. And he was liking it and cheering it on. I mean, it just, there's disgusting stuff people have done out there. And, that's what you have to deal with when you're online. But
yeah,
I expect it from the atheists, not Christians.
But I expect it from Christians now.
Yeah.
I mean, 22 years of ministry, when you stand for something. I mean, I've had anything from pastors to evangelists to missionaries to preachers' kids to you name it, say just absolute, some of the most god-awful lies, horrible things. It is what it is. It used to upset me, but I'm way too old now, and I just don't care. Like you said, I know who my friends are. I know who's got my back. People who know me know where I stand, and I will talk to anybody at any time about any topic. And if I'm wrong, look, as a pastor, I stood up in front of my church and said I was wrong about certain things. Like that's, I'm not Jesus. I'm not perfect. And I don't speak ex cathedra and all that other kind of stuff. It would really do our movement a lot. And it would be a little bit refreshing if people would be a little bit more gracious. And I'm talking to me too. I know I can come across as less than gracious a lot of times.
Me too.
And be sarcastic and use humor and, that kind of stuff. But what I just won't put up with is watching another man who loves the Lord, who stands for the Bible, who stands for truth, who's a fruit-bearing tree, as Brother Hiles used to call us, don't attack a fruit-bearing tree. And to stand up there and call you something as egregious as an anti-Semite, to me, that crosses a line. That crosses a line. If he wants to call you, hey, look, he's an idiot because he's a post-tribber. Okay. I'm not going to, I'm okay with that.
I'll take idiot.
And I will too for whatever position I have. I'm perfectly fine with that. I have a beard. I wear colored shirts. I go to the movies. So, call me whatever you want. But the idea of calling somebody an anti-Semite, that is over the line. And that is where a lot of these guys, and I hope they get more public because they're all in my texts and private messages and DMs. They need to come out and say, that crossed the line. Yeah. You don't have to agree with the end times. You don't have to. But just call the guy a Jew hater. That's literally what an anti-Semite is. An anti-Semite is a Jew hater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And and I got a problem with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like
if a Jewish person came to your church tonight, do you have Wednesday night service or Thursday?
Wednesday.
Okay. So if a Jewish person came to your church tonight, would you tell them they had to leave?
Nope.
If a Jewish person came to your church tonight and said they don't have any food, would you help them out?
Yep.
if a Jewish person was
But,
broke
hey,
down,
I got to clarify though. I don't think I would get an extra blessing for helping them just because they were Jew. I got to throw that in there.
that's good. I like that. I respect that. Do you, if a Jewish person came to your church, would you not witness to them?
I definitely witness to them.
Would you witness to them differently than if you were to witness to a Gentile?
I would maybe, I would deal with certain aspects of the gospel a little more,
But I mean, let me ask you this way. Would your plan of salvation change for him if it was anybody else?
Nope. Exact same. One gospel.
Would you hope that they wouldn't listen to you and not get saved?
No, I would love to see them get saved. Love it.
Interesting. Boy, that sure sounds like an anti-Semite to me.
Well, I'm looking at one tweet here Joe Shakur did. He said, didn't watch, but the impression online warrants the conclusion that he's in the Zionist conspiracy camp, or at least sympathetic. That's fair. I guess I'm sympathetic towards a lot of that stuff, even though I don't agree with all of it. But then he said, just search for Israel on his tweets. What would be your inference? Both labels, anti-Semite / liar, are inaccurate for both men. So I think he's saying anti-Semite is inaccurate. So he's got like a bunch of posts that I did against. And listen, yeah, I mean, I don't apologize for my position on these things, and I'm hard on Israel. But and if I ever do it in a more provocative way, it's not to take pokes at the Jews as much as it is the Zionist Baptists, just because I get aggravated sometimes, especially when they're calling me anti-Semitic.
Understood. It's fair.
I'm nicer when people are being fair, but when they start throwing that out, that's when I might get going with the ad hominem. I'm
with you. Trust me, I feel you on that, and I'm guilty too. So but to me, that's more of an attitude than it is a position.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I think Joe will be more reasoned, especially if he goes and listens to this later on, or come on your show as a Jewish pastor who is. And I don't mean this to be insulting or rude, who's 1,000 times more mature and intelligent than, Peter is.
Mm-hmm.
He might actually be the one that will help Peter. Because right now, again, not right now, but before I hopped on, Brother Joe was saying some things and, Peter instantly became a cheerleader with pom-poms.
Right.
But that's because he really doesn't know where he stands on these issues. And again, to come out and say at the end of that conversation, I still believe you're anti-Semite. That's the kind of ignorance and pride and insecurity that's killing us.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I just noticed he has some tweets where he had questions directed at me that I hadn't seen. So here's what I'll do. I appreciate you coming on here. I'll let you leave. I don't want to answer these things, and put you in a position where you have to defend or, or whatever, because this isn't about that, so in like these questions he's asking are good ones. And they're ones we can disagree on, but I'm not going to try to get everyone to agree with my position, but I hope that they will see I'm not anti-Semitic in any way. But and again, so I appreciate you doing what few do, and it was refreshing. And so I hope you don't get piled on too much by these people who are mad that this thing did not go the way I think they were hoping it would go.
And fortunately, there's just very, very few of them, because anyone with an ounce of intelligence is gonna see it for what it is.
Yes, sir. So, well, all right. Well, you take care, and we will talk to you later.
All right. See you, bro.
Bye. All right. So let me switch this, and then I want to get to some of these questions that are on Twitter by Pastor Joe Shakur, who is, I believe, of Jewish descent. So the first question, and this one was already asked by Peter, but he asked, do you believe that the Holocaust happened with 6 million Jews exterminated, or Anderson, that it didn't happen / or grossly exaggerated? And one of these days I'd like to get to where we're able to talk about this without mentioning Anderson. So I already answered that. That's not an issue with me. I've got I've not looked into it. I've got no reason to question or doubt it. I'll give it to you. 6 million. Sometimes I just tell people I believe it was 60 million. And then when they look at me funny, I was like, if you think it's less than that, you're anti-Semitic. But that's nuts. And so the second thing, does the land belong to the people of Israel? And then we already know you don't hold a pre-tribulation rapture. And that is true. I don't hold a pre-tribulation rapture. So do I believe the land belongs to people? I believe to the victors goes the spoils. I mean, if they have the land right now, I guess it's because they won it in warfare or whatever. But either way, they're actually still considered by the UN to be occupying, that land. And so it's one of those things where they're kind of in technically they're in some kind of like stalemate right now, where they've been slowly choking the Palestinians out for a long time. And when it comes to how they're doing that and how that's all going down, I think it's all pretty horrible. But at the end of the day, there's land disputes all over the world, for a lot of different, reasons, some religious. Now, do I believe that they have some claim on that land today because of God's promise to Abraham? Okay, I think that's a good way to answer the question. And I would say absolutely not. And if you read the terms and conditions and things in the Bible too, God told them that if they did not keep his laws and if they did not follow his word, that they would be taken out of the land. And then, yes, God promised that he would bring them back, but that happened after the Babylonian captivity. I believe when they rejected Jesus as Messiah, that was the final straw. And when 70 AD came, I believe that was God's judgment on the nation of Israel, and they lost the land. And I believe what we have over there in the Middle East today is something with the name of Israel, but I don't believe it is of God at all. I believe it is a creation of the United Nations, and I believe ultimately it will bring in the Antichrist system. That's my position. So I do not support Israel. I don't think our country should get involved in helping them. I don't think we should give them tax dollars. Just as I don't think we should be supporting Ukraine. I don't know what that makes me, but I disagree with that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to get too emotionally caught up in what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. I hope they work things out. I hope the Jews and Palestinians work things out where it doesn't affect our country in a negative way. But I don't believe they have any kind of claim to that land. I think, they lost it for almost 2,000 years. And any claim that they do have is just because they're winning the battle, just like we've got this this land in America because we got it from the Indians. To the victor goes the spoils. That's the way it works. But I think that's kind of all he had for questions. I just lost it. But anyway, I appreciate everyone coming on here, and I encourage preachers out there, man, don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay, I won't bite your head off. I will be nice to you, but be careful being like Peter, going around throwing crazy accusations. That's wrong. And you know what? We need more guys like Pastor Beaumont who will call out lies and foolishness in their own camp. I appreciate him doing that and just being honest about a conversation. And so anyway, I hope this was fun for everybody, and we'll see y'all next time.